right. Well, thank you for joining me, Miss Felicia Farber. You are tremendously gifted in terms of your book. Welcome to the Parenting Teens Coaching podcast, where we're discussing how to elevate our parents in their ability to raise their teenagers effectively. And you have written a book called Ice Queen. And the book is relevant to high schoolers and all of the situationships, that's what we call different terms, them occurring, to bullying, to them self-identifying, self-esteem, self-doubt, judgment, and the list goes on and on. I thought it was a good read. It flowed well, and I can see how teenagers can really enjoy the book. So we're going to show the book once more. Tell me where the book can be located.
The book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's in ebook and paperback as well.
Okay, so one of the highlights that really builds around the book is sexting. So what exactly is sexting?
Sexting is sending or receiving nude or partially nude images through any type of electronic device, like a cell phone or computer or tablet.
Okay, and how often does sexting really occur in the teenage life?
Well, like it or not, sexting has seeped into our culture, and especially for teens. So over half of them admit to sexting. And believe it or not, it's something that adults do all the way up to 82 years old. So statistics are that over 80% of adults between 18 and 82 are sexting as well. And it starts way earlier than you might think, because the average age of the first cell phone ownership happens to be 10.
Okay, and I was going to say 10 now.
Yes.
Okay.
So these kids, going down to elementary school, middle school, high school, that's why it's such an important topic.
Now, it's obvious that this is an important topic for a whole lot of reasons. I would say for safety, for sexual maturity, sexual exposure, but you have a certain area to which you are concerned in regards to how this major issue in our country is developing, especially in our teenage. Tell me that area.
Yes. So what I really spotlight in the book is how antiquated our laws are. In the United States, our laws have been outpaced by technology. So what happens to teens is that they are getting caught up in laws that are meant for adults. And specifically, I'm referring to child pornography laws that are in place to target adult sexual predators, and they're ending up ensnaring our teenagers. And our teenagers are innocent, unsuspecting, when it comes to the laws. They don't know. Most adults don't know about them.
Right.
And I was actually surprised myself to learn that teenagers are treated under our laws as child pornographers when they are caught sexting.
Now that is a heavy topic. That's a real. Parents are not aware. Teens are not aware. Teachers are not aware. No one are
correct.
No one is having master classes concerning this. So what's one thing that you would tell the parent of the teenager? This is one clue. This is one spot that you need to focus on. And what would that be to give them the indication that their teen is sexting?
Well, the best thing to do is have an open line of communication and talk to them. So they may not admit to it, but the thing to do is start a conversation about it. There's constantly stories in the news, and they get really bad when they make the news about teen sexting. So that could be used as an opener. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, to have these discussions. I actually include discussion questions at the end, because it's not such a comfortable topic for people. But if you get teens to think about this ahead of time, then maybe they won't do it if they understand all of the repercussions, because there's a huge social, emotional, and legal impact to it. The consequences can be severe. So I would recommend, talking to your teen and saying, what would you do if somebody asked you for a sext? Would you give it to them? And if you gave it to them, what would happen? Where could that picture end up? And start the conversation and make them realize that once it gets out there, they can't ever get it back. They have no control over what happens to their image, whether it's still image or a video. It's gone, and within seconds, it could be sent to millions of people. So you could actually, say to them, would you ever walk into the school naked? Would you want your teachers, your other classmates to see you with nothing on? I mean, that would be such a horrifying thought. What do you think the answer would be? Of course not. And so they need to understand that a private picture that they send to, and usually it's an intimate relationship with consent. Teens are dating, and then it goes bad. And then somehow this private picture or message gets put out there. So sexting is not just images and videos, it's also sexy talk. So sometimes there can be, written language, whatever it is. It's not good for anybody once it gets out there. So by talking to teens about what could happen if one of these pictures was out there, and of course, on the other side, talk to them about, pressuring other people for a sext, because statistically, 1 out of 4 middle and high schooler is admitting, almost 25% is asking others for sex.
What gender sex more than the other?
That's a good question. I was looking at the gender breakdown, and it's, within the most recent few days, it would be girls, and then, with the most recent week, it would be boys. So I think it's probably about even when you put it all together. So it's both sexes. Who's asking more for sex? I would guess it's the boys, from what I've been told by school administrators, people in the human resource administrative end, is that starting in middle school, kids, mostly boys, are coming into the middle schools, happens in high school too, and saying, hey, got nudes? Got any nudes for me today? So the way you would ask somebody to borrow a pen or for gum, they're asking for nudes.
Yeah, and I think it kind of takes me back when I was in school. It was more so, let's go behind the bleacher. Let's go in an area that no one can see us to do some of these things in real life versus a cell phone just being dispersed to different pictures. So the book talks about, which it has already dropped August the 1st, because it's August the 4th now, 2020. So one of the concepts is revenge porn. I want to talk about that, but before we really talk about revenge porn, why don't we talk about the concept of, again, parents overcoming their fear to converse with their daughter or their son. In my 20 years of servicing teenagers and their parents, I will tell you that the parents have very difficult moments starting conversations, and not only starting conversations, but vulnerable conversations. So share with me your thoughts in relation to that, because my statistics, not from on the internet, but personal, working in my clinics and my firms, there are girls who are initiating or going above the curve because of self-esteem problems. They want to give their news to the guy to make the guy like them. And so It's a job to reverse that. But how does a parent reverse that? How do they start that conversation? What are strategies, tips that tangible that you can provide before we talk about revenge porn?
Well, that is why I wrote this book, as an icebreaker. So it is the perfect way, because it's an entertaining book. It's not making them sit there and read the laws. It's not in a textbook reading a statute. It's a fun story that puts regular teens in real life situations. Mm-hmm. And it's told through the dual point of view of both the girl and the guy, two innocent high school juniors who get caught up in a sexting scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an icebreaker door opener so that parents can talk about this. And that's why, you know, I mentioned before, I put 16 discussion questions in the back, because my protagonist Blair is 16, because by asking questions, I think that is the best way to start talking about it rather than to lecture about it, because it's so common now that people will be pressured for sex if they want to stay in a relationship, if they want to go out with somebody. You know, it could be a precondition. You know, well, if you give me this, I'll go out with you. Or if you don't give me that, we're going to break up. I'll go out with somebody else. So there's a lot of pressure on kids, and they don't understand the long-term consequences. They probably don't even understand the short-term consequences. They're children, and they don't have, you know, the knowledge and background experience that we have, so they make impetuous decisions. And adults make mistakes. Adults take a lot of risks. And the difference with us is that our mistakes are not out there for the entire world to see the way it is for this generation for teens.
Yeah.
So
I think that carelessness is one of the biggest concepts, and immaturity. We know that the teenagers' brains do not fully mature to have deductive reasoning until about 21 years of age. So with that being stated, it's something that's neither here or there to them. That's why it's so easy to shift out. So when we talk about revenge, we all know what revenge means, but what does it mean in the context of sexting? Revenge porn.
Right. So revenge porn is a bit of a misnomer, because it's really non-consensual pornography.
Okay.
So it's when somebody sends a picture or an image of somebody without their consent. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for revenge. It could be to amuse yourself. It could be to humiliate the other person. You know, there are many reasons why it's sent, but it does have that label of revenge porn.
So what do you think the penalty should be, being that you've studied this, you have some familiarity about it? And then secondly, where did your curiosity come from? Does this connect to your career, or does it connect in another way?
All right, two great questions, thank you. The first is, revenge porn is actually a form of digital sexual violence. So, you know, this is something that, if severe, can be considered a crime. So this is serious. You know, it could be breaking laws by sending out a picture of somebody else, especially if they're a minor. You know, you're getting into creation and distribution of sexually explicit material, which is considered child pornography. If you receive it, then it's the possession of it. Even viewing it, if somebody sends it to you, if it's forwarded on, it's still a crime even to look at it. As long as somebody is under the legal age of majority in whatever jurisdiction, they've committed a crime. So when it's also used to hurt somebody, again, it is a form of violence, and 1.7 times more women are more likely to be targeted than men, because you had asked me before about, you know, with girls and boys, how it affects. So it is something where women are targeted more for revenge porn. So let's just sidetrack quickly to how I got interested in this topic. Actually, it was something that happened to one of my son's friends, to a boy. He had sent a picture of himself in the summer, like now, taken at a lake outside. He was in a bathing suit, but he took a selfie, and it was just his top half. So you couldn't tell that he had a bathing suit on. So it looked like he could have been nude, and he sent it to a girl he liked. He was maybe 12, 13 years old at the time. And so the next thing that happened were talking to the dad. The dad said the police showed up at his auto body shop and wanted to arrest him for sexting. Now, at the time, I wasn't familiar with sexting at all, and he told us the story of how the phone was in his name, because most phones are going to be in the parents' names. Mm-hmm. So when kids do something, it's going to come back to the parent. So because the phone was registered to him and the police did the trace, they came to arrest the dad. And ultimately, it was investigated and the issue was resolved. I'm sorry if there's lights flashing. We're in the middle of a hurricane here, so I'm not sure if you could see that behind me. And I thought that this was ludicrous. How could this happen? How could, when, you know, an innocent kid sends a picture in a bathing suit during the summer, how could the police show up and make this a whole, I mean, and there were a lot of police, you know, this was, you know, the local police, the sheriff, because, you know, this is considered to be a major crime. Right. And and that's what teachers, parents, kids, educators, nobody realizes how serious this is. So that is what put me on track, got my attention, and then I started paying attention to this topic, looking at the news and reading stories and seeing it is everywhere. Yeah. And if you start to talk to parents, they'll say, oh yeah, that happened to my neighbor, that happened to my daughter's friend, my son's friend, oh, that happened to my daughter. So it literally is everywhere, with over half of teens sexting.
Now see, and one reason that this has become a prevalent problem is because of sex trafficking. So the law was tightened in to be able to locate all of this that's going on, because we know in the last, it's probably been the last 10 years or so, sex trafficking has had more talk than it had in the past. It's not that it didn't exist, but more talk, especially, you know, I'm coming from the background of protective service and being, you know, a shrink and therapist and all of that. So that's where the talk, and then so the government had to do more to be able to streamline or find these folks who are soliciting sex or pictures or et cetera, from those children and or those that they didn't know were children. But anyway, I digress. So with that being said, it happened to someone close to you, and therefore it brought an interest for you.
Yes.
Now, this interest, did it spiral into other areas, or did it spiral into being an author only?
I already was an author, so it spiraled into this book, directly into this book. And in the legal and medical communities, I also speak on this topic. I write on this topic because I think it is so important to get out there until our laws catch up to the existing reality, is that this is what this generation does. This is how teens, you know, use their curiosity, their sexual explorations. They've migrated online now into digital media. So like it or not, this is here to stay. So yeah. I'm not a proponent for sexting. I'm saying because it's here, we have to deal with the realities of our time. You know, our culture has shifted and our laws need to shift too. And until they did, I mean, I'm sorry, until they do, our teens are legally vulnerable. Yeah. And most states out there are grappling with this. There's legislation that's imposed, that's pending. There is no federal legislation for sexting yet, but unfortunately, there is absolutely no uniformity among states. So this is something that is still evolving depending on what state you live in. I'm sorry, I'm trying to turn that off. Okay.
So let's talk about what are social media and video companies doing to combat cyberbullying on their platforms, because we know that revenge porn can move into bullying. So what are these platforms doing to protect teenagers?
All right, great question, because teens live most of their lives online now, and especially because of the pandemic, uh, a lot of teens aren't even going to school. There's no physical contact. They have to be at home. So everything is getting lived out online. So there probably will be more sexting. So companies that have all of these millions of teens out there, and just so you know, statistically, it is enormous. So let me just see if I could find the number for you. How many people are online right now using social media?
We know there are billions.
Yeah, there are tens of millions in the US and billions worldwide.
Yeah.
So, you know, so this is huge. So Facebook, let's start with that because Facebook owns Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Facebook offers Bullying Prevention Hub, which is a resource for people who are seeking support on these types of issues. Now, what I love is that they have this new detection technology where they're using machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to be proactive in detecting some of these nude and nearly nude images that are put out on Facebook and Instagram. So their new AI technology can find these images before anybody reports it.
Okay.
So a lot of times people don't even know, they're unaware that this sexually explicit content has put out there, you know, that it's there for the world to see. They don't even know about it. So it's great that companies like Facebook are doing that. And my favorite thing that they've done a few years ago in Australia, they have this program where people can preemptively put nudes onto the site because they know that their angry ex is going to probably put them up there. So people will upload their pictures and then it will go into this photo hashing technology that Facebook has, so that if somebody does try and put these pictures out there, they're already there. And in this pilot program, they won't be allowed to upload the pictures because it'll be flagged immediately. So as far as I know, we don't have that here. Twitter has these privacy policies, Reddit also, Google honors requests from victims of revenge porn to remove the nude or sexually explicit images. So that's really important.
So we have about 2 minutes left. What I want to do is I want to clarify something for parents, because I think they're going to be like, So the initiation of their child potentially getting in trouble legally would be somebody reporting a sexting video or a picture, and that's how the initiation of the law, the police coming out, or is it picking up on their IP addresses? So what is the initiation, very briefly, in terms of how it starts legally being caught, if you will?
As far as I understand, I don't think that the police are out there searching for these, you know, teens who are sexting. I think that it gets reported. Every story, every newsworthy story that I have read has been somebody reporting it. I'm up here in New Jersey, and recently there was a case up here, I'm not going to say which town, but these 3 kids, 2 16-year-old girls and a 17-year-old boy, who were in high school, were doing this one-upsmanship game over, you know, who could send the craziest, most outrageous video to the next. And so one of the 16-year-olds sent the other 2 a video of her giving a guy a blowjob. So the boy, the 17-year-old boy, called her a slut, sent this on to other kids, and ultimately turned her into the, what we call the DARE officer up here, who is, you know, the on-site police officer type counselor for the kids. He happened to work for the sheriff's office. So he went and he turned in this video of the girl, and she got prosecuted. So it was at bad luck. I mean, it was his obligation as a sheriff's officer. So that's just one example, but I think that it gets reported. So just like it did with the story I said, where, you know, the boy sent the picture of him shirtless, you know, from the lake to this girl, and the parents reported it to the police. So.
Okay. Well, Felicia, I really thank you for being on the podcast today and taking out some time. Where can people very briefly find you on social media?
I am on Instagram, Felicia.Farber. Twitter, you could follow me at Felicia Farber. And for professionals, I have a LinkedIn account, and I have a website, which is FeliciaFarber.com. So I have a contact sheet on there. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please. I love to get messages, especially feedback about my book. It did just come out, and I have received so far excellent reviews, and it just got selected to be in a Booklist magazine, which goes to libraries all across the country. So, you know, so far so good. My goal here is to really have a way to open up that line of communication with parents and educators so that teens are receptive and they'll truly understand the impact of sexting and social media, because when they mix together, you know, it could have serious consequences, and without even realizing that they're being educated, you know, they'll be exposed to this and have, you know, a really impactful way of learning and remembering. And really quickly, I know we're running out of time here, my beta readers, because the book did just come out. So my beta readers, every single one of them, boy, girl, adult, whoever read it, said the same thing to me, which was, I didn't know that. Can that really happen? That's unbelievable. So everybody has learned from this, and that is my goal.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and we wish you much further success. And so we will provide this information so the world can know, the teenagers can understand the consequences, and the parents can understand the teachable moments that need to take place.